Hey everyone, my name is Rooster and welcome back to UNKILLABLE. In today's video I have a tournament game replay for you guys against Skillless1, and well, it features a bit of a knowledge check early on in the game. I decided to go for Amplify spec in this scenario with Arclights and Sledges because I wanted to play some more defensive gameplay, and this is a perfect pack for that. My opponent here decides to go for, I believe, Spiders with Marksman, and they have a Marksman Specialist to boot. Now, because of the building layout, I decide to stack the left side of the field here because my left side of the field is completely empty. And so for an aggressive player, they would probably favor playing on that side compared to the side that has the wall and the building behind it. I likely should sell my anti-armor cannon here in the middle, although I could also keep it, but looks like I will end up selling it. And yeah, we're going to stack the sledgehammers, give the small amplifying cores to my sledges, probably float one, and throw that onto likely a Sabertooth or a Phoenix on round 2. That immediately kind of gets into what I want to buy here on round 1. I'm lacking both proper chaff and DPS. My sledgehammers are kind of tanks, I guess you could call them. But rather than buying marksman here to have some DPS, I'd rather just buy crawlers that I'm gonna need anyway, and then kind of leave the option to go into something like Sabertooth or Phoenix on round 2, which are just more solid DPS options against things like Tarantula. So that's what it's going to be. Crawlers behind the tower, one all the way in the back to already kind of set up the chaff waves, and that's gonna be that. I properly, abandoned the right side of the field, so if my opponent actually, called the bluff and pushed on the right side, I may be in some trouble here, but I was kind of willing to take the risk, and it pays off. Now, I don't expect to win round 1. As I said, I probably don't have the DPS, but if I can kill the spiders, I'd be pretty happy. And looks like we will at least manage that. The small amplifying cores definitely do help a lot in the early game in terms of bonus damage and bonus tankiness, but in the end, the marksman will prevail. My opponent gets a level, and he will also get their level 3 marksman this round. And now in round number 2, we immediately have to deal with the unit reinforcements. Now, there is a Sabertooth in there, and I kind of wanted to grab Sabers as my response into the spiders here, but I have to be a little bit wary about the wasps, and so instead of going for the free Saber, I decided to go for the double deployments and really kind of prioritize, the amount of units I can get this round. And I pick Fang, which should be able to deal with the wasp as long as it has some frontline. And I'm going to put one behind the tower and one here on the right to deal with any potential kind of attack here, which wouldn't defend it, fully, but it would at least put a halt to any attack on my right tower. And in the meantime, I still have the money after selling the building to be able to afford double Sabertooth in front of each of the spiders and then go for a small amplifying core on top of things. So at this point, I'm feeling rather confident about my position. I think I'm in a really comfortable spot. My opponent adds another spider, and I mean, the Sabers here should be very powerful. I might even try and go for something like range enhancement very early, just to solidify kind of the advantage here over the enemy chaff clear. Opponent goes for a wasp to defend the flank, and also, I guess, annoy my lack of anti-air. I'll have to see how this goes. Saber on the left immediately locks on, very happy with that, so that spider's gone. The one in the middle is the one that isn't really answered at the moment, but the two that my opponent started with have already died. Saber does manage to get another shot off. And, well, we might not end up winning here, as I do have to deal with this level 3 marksman. Saber does kill the marksman, but dies whilst firing the shot, so it actually does not get the benefit of all that experience. Level 2 Sabertooth would have been great, but it's not meant to be. Marksman here, will it end up dying to the fangs? I'm not entirely sure. Looks like it will, which means that this could be a tie, because there are still some fangs left on the field, which are going to take a really long time to travel, because of course they want to go for the towers first. And so yeah, I think we are simply going to end up running out of time with all of the fangs getting to live another day instead of having to fight this brutal war. Now, from here on out, I'm honestly quite happy with my situation. As I mentioned, the Sabers are doing great. I didn't get a level, but I should be able to get one soon. And yeah, I could just probably prioritize, you know, getting more arc lights, ranging them, ranging the sabers, maybe buying a little bit more chaff. But aside from that, I'm feeling really good about the spot that I'm in. Round number 3 and Smoke Bomb shows up, and I was a little bit worried about this, but it's such a good spell on round 3 that I feel like I should pick it, and so I will. The thing I'm debating here is whether or not I want to actually invest in shields to try and block it myself, because with a level 3 and a level 2 marksman, my opponent has the damage to definitely kill shields, and at that point, things get expensive, right? Buying a 150 cost spell, buying 2 shields to potentially defend against it, and then potentially losing them, that would set me back a lot of cash. And I wasn't really interested in that. So whilst I put the barriers down first, I then realized that is way too expensive. Let me not do that. Let me kind of call the bluff. You know, if worst comes to worst, you know, maybe we just end up trading the 2 smokes, with neither of our armies having any range, but at the very least, I will have, you know, some cash to invest into my actual composition. So that's what you see me do here. What I didn't expect, though, is my opponent to instantly start selling out of their Tarantula and go for Wraith, which punishes me quite heavily because I don't have proper anti-air. I was kind of calling the bluff on the fact that my opponent already had Marksman, so I wasn't expecting Phoenix. And I really didn't think they would go Wraith on this round with the smoke because they already had bought triple Tarantula, which they can sell out of. But generally speaking, that is going to set them back heavily just because they're going to lose 3 deployments if they want to actually like transition out of all of their chaff clear into the Wraith. But I don't have a ton of anti-air. I just have this one Fang. And so even though I win convincingly and I land the smoke, I'm just going to end up losing here to this Wraith because it has an absorption module, which is probably the best item on this unit, especially in these type of scenarios. It just becomes an absolute monster in terms of tankiness. And with how many units are left alive, it very well might level instantly on this round. So a very, very bad turn for me. I landed the smoke, but I didn't get anything out of it. I might be able to just get some damage in, but the Wraith will certainly get a level, and that's somewhat uncommon. This is one of the hardest units to level, period. So it's really rare for this to instantly grab a level at 2250 experience for the level 1 requirement. And yeah. So now round 4, I have to deal with a level 2 Wraith with an absorption module. And suddenly, I don't feel too comfortable anymore about the position that I'm in. Smoke Bomb shows up again. I'm not going to pick a second one, but I probably should buy the barriers now because I thought, well, I landed the smoke. My opponent probably wants to kind of try and retaliate. So at this point, I am somewhat forced to buy the shields. I am going to go for the heavy armor just because it's a good item, and throw that onto my Sabertooth that has the most experience at the moment, because I think the tankiness will still be kind of beneficial, even if my opponent ends up selling out of the Tarantulas. Here come the barriers, and that only leaves money to go for double Marksman, because I was expecting my opponent to go for Wraith on the right side as well, and they immediately grab the range enhancement. So they don't have a ton of DPS, but, you know, this Wraith at this stage of the game probably can DPS just fine. They have double it, or they have the first attack, the first defense enhancement, and yeah, a level this early plus the absorption means that it's going to be incredibly resilient. I have another problem too, which is the fact that I can't really get rid of the Wasp that fast. I have a Fang that arrives, it will eventually do the job, but it's going to prevent my Marksman from locking onto this early, and I honestly need all the DPS I could get at this point, because, well, you know, killing this is going to be a nightmare otherwise. And already you can see that the Wraith is doing a really good job. Even though I am winning the ground war, I now have to kill that Wraith. And yeah, it tanks an awful lot as long as it has stuff to shoot at, which it does. So even though I have 2 marksmen here hitting it for, you know, quite a long time, I end up losing anyway with this Wraith surviving, and already it's moving closer to level 3. Round number 5, we get unit reinforcements. And there's a Farseer in there, which I instantly pick up because I feel like, well, it's probably the best thing at this point to be able to deal with that Wasp. It feels a little bit bad because I already bought the Marksman for that purpose, but if I'm going to get this offered, I might as well just grab the Farseer, go Aerial Specialization, because it's a unit that can kind of deal with Wasp by itself. It's not the best at dealing with Wasp, but it's good enough. And at this point, I'll take anything I can get. You know, the flip side is that there's a good drop in here as well for my opponent, which is the level 3 Void Eyes. Very, very powerful unit, at least at the time of playing this game. And yeah, that kind of instantly gives them those deployments back that they were missing, right? The Spiders got sold, those deployments are lost, but now the Void Eyes kind of come back to replace them. And suddenly the board doesn't look bad at all. There's plenty of chaff. The Marksmen aren't the most important anymore, but the Wraith are, I would claim, you know, properly out of control, especially this one. And they have the money to go for immediate floating artillery array as soon as round 5. Without skipping deployments and getting those level 3 Void Eyes on the field as well, which is a fantastic counter to things like the Sabres that I've been running. So yeah, I'm going to need to get some aerial units or aerial specialization units on the field pretty soon if I want to have a chance here at beating this. I decided to go for a little bit more tankiness. I think the right side tower here gets leveled. I put a missile down because I thought there is a chance that with the unit drop I get attacked. I don't, but I didn't really want to run the risk. And I add a sledgehammer as well because it tends to be one of the best things into Wraith. You know, buying a ton of chaff doesn't work well into this unit because it is the king of chaff clear. But if you buy tanks, especially things like sledgehammers with field maintenance, it can sometimes do the job. Problem though is that still my opponent gets in very fast. 8 gun is an incredibly powerful tech. While my Farseer does a good job here and kind of equalizes the score, I'm not gonna have enough juice to be able to grab a round. And now I feel like things are starting to slip away a little bit because my opponent is still at 4,000 plus hit points and I'm getting down to 3k. That's not a good sign. Land Cruiser is on the bar, and late game that becomes a massive issue because it would just completely invalidate my AA Farseer. So I feel like I have some ground to cover, but first I need to fix my chaff clear. The crawlers are getting somewhat out of control, and that is something that I need to fix. So I'm going to go for range on the arc lights with the idea to go for shockwave in the next round. I have the money now to grab another Farseer as well, which should be enough to deal with the middle. The real problem is this guy right here with the level 3 and the absorption. I can't really do much about that. I mean, Ignite would turn it off, but playing Ignite Fang into 8 gun Wraith is not really a thing. I don't run EMP on my Marksman, which wouldn't really do that much either, to be honest. I guess it would turn off the techs, but it wouldn't turn off the absorption. And on top of that, eventually Land Cruiser will probably get picked, and at that point, it's unlikely that my Marksman will be able to lock on. So I don't think that EMP here would have really helped that much either way. I'm going to pick up all the levels that I can on my Sledgehammers and my Sabres, because having enough of a front line here should buy me the time that I need for the Farseers to do their job. And I am going to go for field maintenance as well on those Sledgehammers to buy me a little bit of extra time. Now, though, my opponent has already gone through kind of the basics of what they need for chaff clear, right? Their Wraith has 8 gun and range, and as long as they're winning rounds, they don't really need to worry too much about Land Cruiser, which means that they can start investing into Void Eyes. And that scares me, because now, I mean, we have range level 3 Void Eyes. Thankfully, Charge Shot hasn't been clicked yet, but you can see that my Sabres might end up struggling quite a bit. Chaff clear also not fantastic yet, and I'm planning next round to buy triple arc lights, probably with shockwave, to try and make sure that the shockwave overlaps and I chaff clear a bit faster to allow for my Farseers to lock on quick. In the middle, we're doing kind of fine here. That Farseer does do a pretty good job. It actually gets enough experience to level. The one on the left is going to have just enough damage to be able to take that down. But again, my tower is exposed. There's a couple of Void Eyes still alive, and it looks like I will not be able to get a victory here. I do take down another Marksman there at the very end. Don't take a ton of damage, but I really want to start getting, you know, some good round wins in here, so I don't have to worry about round 10 plus against, you know, double, triple tech Wraith and double or triple tech Void Eye. Round number 7, we do get our smoke bomb back. terms of cards that are offered, nothing that I'm too interested in. My opponent goes for mass-produced Sledgehammer. The other cards, the econ cards, are a little bit too late at this point. I don't think it's worth picking them, so I am going to just end up skipping. And we see a Sledgehammer flank here with a Crawler to try and just delay my Farseer as long as possible. I'm going to put the Smoke in the middle because I thought, well, maybe they only shield on, you know, this left side. Sometimes they won't like shield everywhere, which means that I can at least land a little bit of smoke, which would help me out. Levels are getting picked up on all the Farseers. And I am going to go for Shockwave Arclight with triple Arclight. You can see that I'm using this buddy system here with the Arclights, which works very well for Shockwave. Just being able to overlap them means that the Shockwaves actually end up killing stuff by themselves. And yeah, it tremendously increases your shaft clearing speed. Farseer manages to lock on here. I'm pretty happy about that. My tower is exposed, but thankfully we managed to take down the Wasps just in time. With the units still spawning in, they are a lot weaker, so we managed to kill that flank pretty quick. And finally, I get a round win. Not a massive one, but at least it sends my opponent down to around 3k, which is a little bit more manageable. And now round number 8, we have additional deployment slot and laser sight. Efficient tech research is a little bit too late at this point. An extended range phantom ray wouldn't achieve much, in my opinion. My opponent, by the way, does have a lot of other really good items. I mentioned Absorption Module, which has kind of been the main pain so far, but there are also 2 laser sights on the other Wraith, which is a bit of a scary thing to have to face. But last round went well, so, you know, maybe we can get away with this. And at this point, I didn't really know. Do I want to grab another laser sight to throw onto a Farseer, or do I want to try and grab, you know, more deployments? I think both here are justifiable. It is a bit late for additional deployment slot, but this late into the game, you do have a little bit more money on hand, which could come in, you know, quite handy. Smoke is going to get used by my opponent. I do have to buy some shields. I am going to start loaning here on round 8. Temp range, mandatory, of course. And I also have double attack just to try and get through those tank units a bit quicker. Now, though, the right side starts to be looked at by my opponent. It has been a bit of a weak point. And we have triple tech Void Eye, which I did mention briefly, but it is now on the board with Charge Shot and Suppression Shot, which will definitely hurt all of my units if they end up getting hit by that. And right side under attack. 2 more Wraith being added for a grand total of now 5, all of them level 2. Smoke is going to land partially. I'm going to go for a level 2 Phantom Ray here to just try and clear that flank as quick as possible. But with my opponent loaning the temp speed, the temp range, my right side tower will be under attack pretty quickly. While I do manage to take down at least 1 Wraith, my tower is going to fall. 7 seconds of debuff is what I now have to endure. I will say it's not the worst, as a lot of my units were still shooting at Wasps, and they're capable of one-shotting the Wasps even during debuff. And now when the debuff goes away, I actually have enough on the board to be able to hopefully seal the deal. A lot of my units end up dying at the very end there. The Void Eyes are fighting back. My Farseer is going to turn, hopefully be able to take that down. I get the debuff, and I'm going to keep at least 2 Farseers alive with a Marksman and a Fang Pack. So now my opponent's down to 2.5k. Orbital Bombardment shows up. You can see a spell, pick a spell this late into the game. Nothing else really seems that good to me. And so, yeah, I'm expecting to get bombarded myself too, so I'm going to have to buy some shields again. Sticky Oil Bomb is available once more. I'm just going to use that on the right side because I'm trying to stall as much as possible, and right now the right side is the weakest. I was pretty happy about how the left side looked, but the right side really needs a little bit of help. So if I can get something like a blue Farseer, maybe an Arclight here, I'd be quite happy. Keep in mind I do have double defense enhancement already, and here comes the dreaded tech, Land Cruiser. It has now finally been clicked, and this is a very, very big problem for me. And the reason for that is my Farseers now don't do anything. A big reason why they were doing so well is because the aerial specialization gives them bonus range, which keeps them safe, and it gives them bonus damage into the Wraith. That's now all gone. It's basically as if I'm playing Farseers with no techs whatsoever, And there's no real reason to play Farseer on this board. It's, you know, a supportive unit, and while it does do well in the early game, it doesn't really scale that well, especially if you can't make use of aerial specialization. So this is potentially going to cause some trouble. We're going to have to see how much my Farseers can really do. Oil does land, opponent trying to get in onto that right side, and honestly managing to delete my sledgehammers very quick. Even though they do have double defense enhancement, they just don't really manage to hold on long enough against all of these charge shot Void Eyes and the 8-gun Wraith. Right side tower, again, going to be under fire. As I mentioned, my Farseers are unable to make use of their tech. And yeah, that means that they're just going to get caught by the Void Eyes and lose 30% more of their range when they get hit, which turns the tide quite convincingly. Now I take a boatload of damage, and I have to enter round number 10 with unit reinforcement showing up, and I don't really know what to do at this point. Now my plan going into round 10 was to try some wasps, because the moment my opponent goes for land cruiser, they no longer have you know, solid anti-air to deal with wasps, because the land cruisers can't shoot up. But this unit drop has triple blue Mustang in it, so that plan was no longer valid, and I was at a loss. Doesn't happen often that I have absolutely no idea what to do, but this was one of those moments where I was just, I don't know. None of the options looked good. Mustang for myself doesn't make a lot of sense. It just isn't going to perform well into Wraith that have 150 plus range, 170 here on the laser sights. So that doesn't make a ton of sense. The Rhinos, the Hounds are just going to get one-shots by either the Charge Shot Void Eyes, some of them already level 6 on the enemy field. I could go Phoenix, but realistically, it's not going to do much. My opponent has 2,500 hit points. Even if the Phoenixes do anything, you know, AA Mustang, AA Marksman next round would completely obliterate me. So I didn't really want to go into that either. I pick the Rhinos, I sell one of them, and at first I think to myself, maybe I could do something like EMP Void Eyes, but that didn't really sound great. I don't have any on the board right now. It would cost most of my money, and you can see that I'm running extremely low on time. So I kind of scramble here, and I decide to put a mountain on the board and hope for the best. But, I mean, I'm throwing a bit of a Hail Mary at this point. Rhino walking on the right side. Hopefully we'll be able to tank here so that this Farseer can actually fight back. It does have double attack enhancement, which helps a little bit, but these guys, they hit hard. Double attack enhancement has now been picked up by my opponents as well, which doesn't really help the Void Eyes that much, but it certainly benefits the Mustangs and the 8-gun Wraith. And yeah, this doesn't look good at all. I lose my tower, and with that, I lose the game. So, what do I do here? I'm not gonna lie, this game is lost at this point. There's nothing I can do. Even if I find somehow a way to win the round, it would probably be by, you know, a couple of hundred damage, which is just not going to be enough. My board is outscaled. The Void Eyes are too problematic at this point. Nothing kills them efficiently. The Wraith are completely out of control. And yeah, there's Mustangs as well. So any air attempt, really, even if it works for one round, which I doubt it would, you know, would immediately get countered the round after. So the crucial moment in this game is I normally go AA Marksman into Wraith, which works most of the time, but this is a specific scenario where my opponent is selling out a Spider, has Absorption Module really early, and gets a level 2 Wraith on round 4. What I should have realized is that I'm not going to be able to kill this with anything but a melting point at this stage of the game. The other thing that's important is that I need to keep up the tempo. Playing into Wraith becomes really painful when the game goes to round 10 and past, especially when Land Cruiser is available. It just becomes a bit of a nightmare at some point. So I have to keep up the tempo, and the only way I do that is probably by making sure that I can kill this. So if I take over here on round 4, you know, at this point, I know that the Wraith is purchased. I know it has a level. I know it has an item. I should just play for melting point. And so we can try that here. I lost this round, even though I did block the smoke. We can have a quick look. I had 4,300 hit points at the start. At the start of round 5, I have 3,700. So I lost about, 500-600 hit points there. This is the wrong round. On round 4, I go for double blue marksman. But what I really should have done is play for the melting point, which is expensive, but it is affordable at this point. I am going to need to put down 2 barriers to be able to block that smoke, because I kind of know that it is going to get picked as a bit of a retaliatory move. And what I should do here is just sell this saber on the left. My opponent sold the spider, so it's not really doing anything anymore. And that means that I actually have the money here to unlock a melting point and reutilize the armor, or well, utilize the armor I picked up this round to deal with that. Considering I'm playing into Wraith, I don't think it's too sensible to go for more chaff. So I'm just going to add another Arclights to kind of already put this buddy system into work, and then it'll make it easier for me down the line to go into range and shockwave, because I'll already have the Arclights in the correct spots. So this is probably the round that I would go for. I even keep a little bit of money on hand. And let's see how that goes. Opponent goes for range wraith, and I don't have a great way of dealing with the enemy wasps. But hopefully, this will allow me to fight back. I am gonna lose my barriers, but I think getting hit by the smoke is much more problematic at this point. We can speed up things a little bit. The right side thankfully doesn't get attacked because I didn't deal with that. But I now have a melting point that will be able to just take down the absorption module wraith. And even though everything else dies, I should be able to just get a victory here with the melting point surviving and crucially getting a level. And this kind of poses a problem for my opponent, right? Which I didn't really do before. It's not very difficult to kill level 2 marksman or even a level 2 farseer. It is kind of difficult to kill a level 2 melting point with a heavy armor on it. Even if my opponent is a level 2 wraith with 8 gun, that's not going to, die very quickly. So even though I don't consider Melting Point to be the best counter to Wraith, it will struggle. It doesn't do great into things like Land Cruiser. Although you do have the EMP barrage. But it just provides this massive tankiness, right? I don't have the benefit of having aerial specialization on this unit, but I can make up for it with the fact that when I lock on, I kill the unit very quick. And I might even have access to something like Multi-Melter with range to try and, close this game quick. I think that is the big thing. I don't want this game to go very long, and I think this is the one play that I should have made that would have allowed me to have a bit more comfortable of a game. Because if you look at what I did, I went for marksman like I usually would, and then I realized, wait a second, I'm not going to be able to kill that melting point, and I have to now deal with these wasps as well. Which then leads me to pick the Farseer on round 5 on the unit drop. But, that kind of overlaps with the marksman I already built, which means I just have a lot of useless deployments. And then those deployments get even more useless, when we get later in the game and Land Cruiser gets picked. But if I had a melting point here, these deploys wouldn't be dead, and I wouldn't have had to grab the Farseer. In fact, I could have taken the Typhoon and just used those very late to get rid of the wasps. Potentially even click AA on them at some point. But it adds more beefiness to the board. It just gives me more tempo. And at the end of the day, I think that is what would have been crucial for this game. So yeah, a game that snowballed very quick. But I think it is important as well to just look back at these games and have a look at, okay, what could I have done? Even if it was as early as round 4 sometimes. Alright, if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up. Let me down in the comments below what you thought about it. Have you struggled against, a massive Wraith before that you couldn't kill? Let me know. If you want to step to the latest content, please consider subscribing. And if you want to see me play live, check me out on Twitch. With that being said, take care guys, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.